Hi everybody, this is Ross here with Church Windows, and today we're going to be working on scheduler reports within Church Windows. I'll be working, the instructions I'll be doing will be coming out of the scheduler workbook S102, and that can be purchased on our website. So let's get started. I'm going to go into membership or go into Church Windows and click on Scheduler to open it up. And Scheduler has a half dozen or so different reports that you can use to get various information out of the module. The first report we're going to be working on is called the calendar report. All the reports can be found by going up in the top left corner of Scheduler and clicking on the Reports tab. So if I do that, then you get the list of different reports you can choose from. I'm going to select Calendar as my first report. What the calendar what this report does is it allows you to print your events off in a calendar format. You can either do weekly or monthly. It defaults to the current year and the current month. So if you need to do it for the upcoming month, you just up here in the top left of the calendar options report, you click on the drop down that says month and you select July or August or whatever month you are looking for. I'm just going to leave that at June, and just kind of show you what the default looks like when you actually run the report. So I'm going to click print in the bottom right corner, and then here is the calendar report. So days where there are no events, they are just left blank, as you can see here. And then days where there are events, and it lists the time, the event, and its location. Lists them in sequential order for that particular day. So, for example, if we look at the 11th, we see 10:30, 1 p.m., 6 p.m., and at least each of those events and the location. If you have a lot of events on a particular month, it will not all fit on one page. So if you see here, it only goes to the 24th on this page. You can scroll down to the second page, and then you have the last week remaining. There are things you can do to try and mitigate that by either using a bigger piece of paper, or there is the option to try and scale down the report itself. You can do that up here in the top left using either the page setup or like the page options button. So if I click this one here to the right of the page setup button, this is what allows you to adjust it to fit on the one page. So I just select fit to one page wide. That didn't do what I wanted to do. Adjust to, and then if I just say choose 80% and click OK, the text is a little smaller, but it all fits to one page. So if that's what you want to do, you can play around with it to basically make it as big as possible onto one page. So you can click back on it and select, say, 88%. So 88% for this particular month will fit onto that one page, so you can print it off and not have to paste two things together. Paste two pieces of paper together if you're going to post it to the bulletin board, for example. So let me close out of the print preview. There are a couple different things you can do on the calendar to change how the information is displayed. Over here on the right, under the content section, you can change if it's going to show the location or the start time for a particular event. So if we uncheck show location, it will no longer say gym or meeting room and things like that when you actually run the report. And then the calendar heading, just the top of the heading. If you don't want it to say June 17, as a default, you could put in, say, church events for June. And if we click print, see the report itself is not taking up as much space because all the locations are no longer showing up. So each day isn't as tall as it was. So we could then adjust it back to 100% of its normal size, and you can see it just fits on the on one page. Close out of the print preview again. If you wanted to do just weekly reports instead of doing a whole month, you click on the little week layout button there, and when you do that, it will then activate the week starting drop down, and then you have your selections of different weeks to choose from in that month. So then if I just select the week starting May 28th, since some of the days in that particular week are in June, that's why it shows up as an option. So if we click print, you can see that it just prints the one page, or the one week. If you want to be a little more choosy about what information or like what types of events show up on the calendar, you can click on the Selections tab and make some changes here. I can make it so, like for example, only things that take place in the meeting room show up on the calendar. So if I click the locations button, so by default it's going to show you every event, every person, every selection, every duty, and anything that has been selected will show up on the calendar. But if we click uncheck all here in the bottom left, or at the bottom of the screen, and click just meeting room 1 and click OK. With this checkbox here, this is me telling the calendar to print only events that meet the following criteria. With meeting room 1 as my option, the only thing that should print on the calendar are events that take place in meeting room 1. So if I click print, there are no events to print because I don't have anything that's in just meeting room 1 for that week. So if I go back to month, for the month of June, and click print, you can see the first week up here, there's nothing that takes place in meeting room 1, so that's why we ran that report, nothing happened. But everything else after that is just things that take place in meeting room 1. So you can see like the worship services on Sundays aren't showing up, and other events aren't showing up. And close out of that. And that's really the different options you have for the calendar. So I'm going to close out of that and move on to the event report, which is one of the more powerful reports in the scheduler module. Um, you can customize the event information that shows up and filter the events like we did previously. We can get pretty specific about what information does and does not show up for each type of event and things like that. The default date range for this report as well is the month that it is currently in. So it's starting June 1st and ends June 30th. And by default, everything over here on the right under content is all checked. So if there's information filled out for that particular item, it will show up when we click print. And the the report is sorted chronologically. So if I click print to kind of show you what it looks like by default, so you see the very first report, or the very first event is youth basketball. Shows the start date and end time, its duration, the location or locations, and any notes for that location, and contact information for people. If I scroll down, we can see it also shows you if there's any duties assigned and any notes for that particular duty, who's assigned for it, the equipment for that particular event. If a particular duty or equipment or location, things like that, are not assigned, they just don't show up when you run the event. So you're not going to have blank lines show up, for example, for equipment if there's no equipment listed. But if you don't want it to list the equipment or the contacts for anything like that at all, that's simple enough. You can just, if I close out of this, say I don't care about listing who to contact for that particular event or the duties for that particular event, I just have to uncheck contacts and duties. And if I don't care about notes at all for anything, I can uncheck those and then go back to clicking print. So you can see now it's no longer showing people assigned for that particular event or who to contact, but it's still showing all the other information. It's no longer showing notes or anything like that for the locations and equipment, because that's what we told it to not do, essentially. And anything on this content tab is remembered for the next time you run the report, even if you don't run it for a few months. That way you don't have to keep unchecking and checking things that you want. But if you want different options, different things to print, then you will have to uncheck and check things as you want it. But it will remember your selections for the next time you run the report. And just like on the calendars report, it has the selections tab where you can then filter it out to only show certain types of events, sorting by either location or categories and things like that. Instead of doing locations, I'm gonna select categories. Uncheck all, and I'm going to ask it to only show group meetings, and so it's going to filter out worship services or Sunday school or anything else. So if I click OK, and you have to make sure after you make your selection, you have to make sure over here on the left of the button, you have to make sure that is checked. Otherwise it won't filter by that particular option. So if I click print, you can see like the youth basketball and the worship services are not showing up because those aren't in that particular category. But then all the rest of the information we want for things in that category are still showing up. And that is really it for the events report. The next report I want to show you is the conflict report. Here we go. And then that comes up. And again, just like before, it defaults to the current month you are in. There's no real different options and stuff like that in terms of selecting what shows up, because it's always only going to show you conflicts for that particular month. The conflicts can be location being used at the same time by a couple different events, equipment being used by two different events at the same time, or people being assigned to two different events at the same time. And when you create the events, and like when you save the event, it lets you know then and there that there's a conflict, but you can still save it, and allowing you to either address the conflict later or run this report to double check what conflicts and things like that you may have. So then if I click print here, it's going to show you each event that has a conflict and tells you what kind of conflict there is. So for example, let me zoom in. I set these conflicts up earlier. So on the 26th, the men's group and Bible study for that particular day between 1 and 2 p.m., they have a conflict, and the conflict is the location is the meeting room 2. So that means they've both been assigned to meeting room. You'll have to make the change in the particular event to change that, change one of the two locations to a different one. And then when you run the report a second time, that conflict will no longer show up. And if you have multiple kinds of conflicts, it will show up each kind of conflict you have. So location conflicts for the second group and equipment conflicts. So they've both been assigned to the same microphone as well. So again, you'll have to go in and edit the events of one or both of the events to change the location and the equipment. So if we go in, for example, let me go to that date. And when you go to look at the conflicts, this isn't part of the report, but or the reporting aspect. But if you look on that particular day, so Monday, June 26th at 1 o'clock, here and here, you get this little, the two events have this little yellow highlighting to it. That just is letting you know that there's a type of conflict between those two events. So if you select one, just event only, let me change the location to meeting room 3 and save that. That was meeting room 3. So I'm just adjusting these real quick, and then so I adjusted the conflict so it's no longer highlighted. If I click reports, conflict report, and then print, you'll see that particular report those two particular events are no longer showing up on the conflict report. So a conflict report is just a good way to get a heads up to see if you have any particular issues with your events you have set up. And then the rest of the reports we have are mainly just kind of a way to print out information of the setup of like the things you have entered into scheduler. For example, if I click go to reports, go to category report, there's not a lot of information or editing you can do on this. Essentially what it's just going to do is if we print this report, it's going to show you all the different categories you have in scheduler and any notes for those particular for that particular category. It's not going to show you what events are being used for that particular category or not. You would go to the event report or the calendar for those. So that's the category report. The duties report is much the same. If we click print, it just gives you a list of duties. If I make sure notes is checked, it's going to show you, give you a description or the notes that you have set up for those particular duties. So depending on how often you use the notes, this report can be pretty helpful. Just kind of give you a list of the different duties and things like that you can have set up in the in scheduler. And then we also have the people report. So all the people in membership that you have told the system to show up in scheduler will show up on this report, and this is basically just be a contact list for people that will that show up in schedule. You can have the options to show the phone and address of the report, and then if you click print, that's what it will show you. It'll list the person's name, their phone, and their address. So if you want to get a quick contact list for certain people, that's the best way to do that. And then we have the two last reports are the equipment and location reports, and they're pretty similar to the other ones. Let me select equipment report. It's just going to show you a little bit more information compared to the other three that we just ran. So you have the location, the categories that equipment is being used for, notes for the equipment, and contacts for people that have been assigned to use in that equipment and everything. So we see this top one here, AV table, or AV table, and then the category. So you see the different things it's been it has been used in, and then we don't have any people showing up or anything. So if we close out of equipment report and go to reports, location reports, it is much the same. So it gives you a list of all the different locations, and if you click print, it will show you the equipment that is kind of assigned, has been assigned to that particular location, and any notes for that particular location. For example, the note here is use the gym when you're scheduling the gym without the kitchen. So that means that would free up, that lets you know the kitchen is free to use. But yeah, so those reports are just basically a way to get lists of your different sets of data within scheduler to see if you have to make any changes or what information you have entered, and ways to get more, let you know what you still need to get entered. But yeah, the main three reports that people mainly use are the calendar, event, and conflict reports. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to enter those, as we are done for the day. Let's see if we have any questions coming in. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions coming in just yet. If you put an email. Oh, I had Gene is asking if you can put an email address as well as phone and address for people. I don't believe we can do that as yet. That is actually a really good suggestion. I will pass that along to the developers to make that as an option, since that is obviously become a really common way to get in contact with people. So yeah, I will. Let me make a note of that real quick. Yeah, that is a great suggestion. I will pass that along to the developers. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions coming in. If you do end up having any, you can always give us a call at 1-800-533-5227, and we'll be glad to help you out there. Or you can email us at support@churchwindows.com, and we'll be glad to answer your email. But I think we are done for the day. So everybody, have a good day and have a good weekend. Thanks. Bye.